I see like the relationships I want as having to be face to face, like our faces are looking directly, our eyes are locking all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
a romantic relationship, especially to me, is not partner in crime. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we're not committing crime. Do you know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
like one. We're like totally together.
So I feel like me as a social type, I'm trying to share myself, not
Yes.
necessarily the information I know, but just like myself.
On one hand, I think we have more social intelligence than the social blinds, but on the other hand, sometimes I'm so overwhelmed by it that I'm like, I can't do this.
The big hormone enneagram.
Hi, I'm John Lukovich, sexual self-pres, golden five wing, 458 trifix.
Hi, I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual 9 with 1, 974 trifix.
What up? It's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I am a self-pres social 3, wing 4, with a 369 trifix. If you like our podcast, guys, make sure you go like and subscribe on the Apple Podcast app. And if you really like us, you should definitely leave us a review.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is another episode of... Damn, now I just forgot the name of the fucking podcast.
Forgot the name of the podcast too. Okay.
This is going great. Big hormone enneagram. There it is.
Yep. Okay, you guys know what podcast this is. My name is Joseph. I am a social sexual for wing 3 with 6 and 1 fixes.
And hi, I'm Alexandra, back again. We're here to talk about the social instinct. I am a social self-pres 9 wing 1 with 6 and 3. So we've got a couple contrasts here in the sense that I am an attachment type. Joseph is a hexad type. He's social sexual. I'm social self-pres. And we have probably a pretty interesting meeting place on how social is both thrilling and infuriating.
Yes, exactly. And I guess if you're looking at both of our typings, we both have a secondary 6 wing 7. Are you 6 wing 7 or 5?
I'm 5.
Oh, you're 5. Okay. So actually, we do have a 6 fix, but there actually are all differences between our fixes. So that'll be interesting for sure. Okay, so a few questions that we want to talk about. The first one is contrasting social attachment versus hexad. So this is definitely an interesting point because I think the attachment types are almost like a pseudo-social.
That's been part of my trouble too, is teasing out the difference between what social is versus what attachment is, because I feel like they blend a lot. Like attachment is the strategy to like maintain the attachment. And to me, it's like, I don't even know what that would look like without social.
Yeah. So I have a good friend who is 3 wing 2, but also social blind. So, and I'm a hexad type and I'm social. So we've had some interesting conversations. One of the, I hope I can describe this well, but one of the conversations we had was, we were kind of talking about extroverted energy and what it's like. And Alexandra, maybe you have some insight on this too, but she was like, I have no problem going to social events, like going to parties, she's like, I'll just show up and be there. And because of attachment, it's almost like, and especially specifically for wing 2, like I have no problem going. And I feel like I'm sort of supposed to go or supposed to do things. I have obligations, that kind of thing. But when I'm there, I can literally almost not be there. Like I can just be sitting there and how do I explain this? Like not even
like engaged.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can go back into myself, but there's just a sense of like, again, almost like attachment. I'm still here. I'm here in this group. Whereas for me, I cannot socially disengage. Like if there are human beings around me, I'm like hyper aware of everything that's happening and how I'm and how I'm responding. And then, I'm sure heart type doesn't, like it's like almost an extra there too, that I'm like, okay, what's my image and all that kind of stuff. But I will not go. Like I can't just sort of show up to an event. I mean, for, super negative type that basically is disappointed with everything all the time. So I'm consistently disappointed in social, but it's like it's almost the opposite. Like I will be selective and be like, no, I'm not going there. Those aren't my people, or I can't do this, or I'm just going to stay home because the energy of having all these people around me is so exhausting. Whereas she's like, yeah, I I mean, it exhausts her after a while, but she's like, I can go to a family function and like put on a smile or whatever. Like if I have to, I can just kind of disengage. And for me, I'm not able to do that. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's just like social energy doesn't stress her out as much. Like she can tune out from it.
Yeah.
And I more relate to you on this end, obviously. Like if I'm going to be at a social engagement, even if it's full of people I don't like, in a topic I don't like, at an event I don't care about, I'm still really plugged into everything that's happening because like that's what I'm there for,
Yeah.
So like I do want to ask you, I'll get back to this. So being a negative type that does kind of have this like repulsion towards everything,
Yeah.
how does that conflict? Do you feel like that conflicts with being a social? Like, how do you navigate being a 4 that is also social?
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot. And it's, sometimes, when somebody asks you to talk about your core type and you're like, I don't know what to say. It's almost like I can't see it or something. But I will just say that I do have, again, like I'm really, really hyper aware of all people and all situations and like just walking outside and that I don't know if even like I'll be in the elevator and somebody else will come in and it's like, oh, there's somebody else here, like I can't ignore it, but everything registers to me. And this is also secondary 6, like another reactive type, but everything registers to me as like an intrusion. Like get the hell out of the elevator, you're disgusting. You know what I mean? And it takes me time, so I start at no. I start at like a rejection immediately, and it takes a lot to sort of get me to kind of like smooth over that, and then I might go from like no to yes, and then once I find what's there, I'm still disappointed and I like pull back again. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you understand 4. But like
Good.
I do have this need, like for example, the social distancing and isolation that we've gone through in the past couple of years has been like literal social hell for me, like just absolute hell. I love fine dining, for example, right? I get to feel like a bitchy 4-wing 3, and I get to feel like people are like, because 4s are kind of like already think that they're somehow superior in some way. So it's like I'm just sitting here in lavish circumstances being served. It's like the perfect scenario. But it's also sitting there and seeing like, I don't know if you feel this way, but like just like feeling the energy of like the people over there at that table and they're talking and they're not talking to me. I don't like them, but they're talking and it feels good just that they're over there. And I'm sensing all of these different kinds of like social interactions that are going on around me. And I feel like if it's a restaurant that I like, I feel like I'm supposed to be in the right place. So it's like I have to kind of pamper myself, but also it feels really good to sense other people's energy. And that was completely nonlinear. So I hope it made some sense.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. It definitely sounds social. I would say also just from me being a different stacking, it also sounds very specifically social sexual. And like,
Right.
tell me what you think about this. But I was thinking about part of the differences between, we're going to jump all over the place. I can feel it.
Yeah. Let's just do that. That's fine.
Okay. I was thinking that part of the difference between social sexual and social self-pres is the display part of sexual.
Yeah.
So I relate to some of the things about like enjoying feeling other people's energy. But there is a quality, and again, you can tell me if I'm getting this right or if I'm totally off base. But there is I sense also a quality of being on display in social interactions. Because, and it's, maybe it's because I'm a withdrawn type, or well, you're also withdrawn type. Maybe it's because I'm an attachment type or just the 9 or something like that. But the lockdown has been almost no issue for me. So I think for me as a 9, as an attachment type specifically, part of my because I can be exhausted by social stuff too. But I think part of my attachment stuff is that I can get attached to social connections that are not that satisfying.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So like I was talking to John about the instincts. That the dominant instinct is really just having an appetite to have that instinct fulfilled. Right. So in the right now, I've just moved across the country. I'm in New York now. I don't have any kind of social network that is just mine. And so I'm feeling, even though I'm not a super like outgoing, I don't like go out and socialize all the time. I am feeling this pressure to like secure something.
Okay.
So that if that appetite ever comes up, I have it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I think maybe one of the differences between attachment types and hexad types is that you're going to be much more particular with how it's actually satisfying. And I'm just going to be like, okay, this will do for now. And so like
Yes.
part of what lockdown did for me was it gave me it just like shut all that shit down. It gave me like perfect excuse to like not engage with these like mediocre attachments anymore. These mediocre social avenues. Does that make sense?
That's fascinating to me. So I'll say also, so you're 9 wing 1, 6 wing 5, 3 wing 4, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So my partner is 9 wing 1, 6 wing 7, 3 wing 4, and social sexual. So
Okay.
like very similar, but also social sexual. And I mean, I haven't asked him about this, but like, I get the sense that he would probably agree. Like it may just be, like a hexad verse or just like a 9 thing, but I don't think that the lockdown was that stressful for him. Like I almost had to be like, you should go out again. You should go out at, like, you know what I mean? Because like I'm super hyper particular, and it's also a frustration type where I'm like, I need those social connections and I need depth and I need all of that stuff, and but I can't find it, and it's just the whole stupid game that fours like to play or whatever. But yeah, he seemed like he was just chill. Like, like we were, I mean, he wanted my attention. He didn't want to be like by himself, I guess. But it was just kind of like I was dying. Like every time they were like, okay, they're opening up like a mall like 2 hours away. Let's go. And he was, oh, okay, I get, you know what I mean? So I don't think he, it may be, as you said, more of a difference between attachment. I wouldn't even say it's attachment. I actually think we're just like in 9 territory. But like attachment 9, like it's, I think it's pretty specific because, but I'm just trying to think of my 3 friend as well, because she's but she's 3, 7, 8. So she's like not triple attachment. It just might not be the best comparison, but, that's a really interesting thing what you said, that like it almost forced you to shed off, like just to like scrape off some of the like dirt and start again. I'm calling people dirt.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully none of my friends are listening to this. But yeah, like lockdown really gave me the opportunity to just be like, all right, I don't have to maintain this. There's a pandemic. Sorry, I'm just being safe. And I think part of the attachment for me, part of like my like attachment pressure plus social, is feeling a need to maintain something for the sake of attachment. And like in the social space, it is like maintaining friendships that may or may not be that like gratifying and fulfilling, just to have like a social avenue, just to have like something to like, I don't know, quench that thirst, if you want to say it that way. Like when I do want to socialize.
Yeah, this is interesting. Because again, this may be another just like attachment versus hexad. It also may be stacking. But so one of the things that like I was like known for as a teenager is like, again, this is my whole sort of trifix, but like designing my friend groups, like first, I have a spare in high school with like one friend, and we like do our thing, but then somebody else would be like, hey, like I have a spare now too, can I come? And I'd be like, no. And it maybe be like a friend I was even closer with, but I was like, this isn't, you know what I mean? This is our time. You need to go over there, because it's almost like, if I'm going to do one thing with you, and we have certain kind of like interactions that are very specific that I need, and somebody else enters into the mix, it just changes the entire dynamic to the point where like I would actually ruin friendships, because I'd be like, you're not coming with us. And I didn't understand why people didn't get it. You know what I mean? Like, why do you not understand? Like, I still care about you, and I still want to see you like tomorrow, but not now.
Right.
And part of that might play into stacking. I think it's more of like, triple attachment versus hexad too. But it may play into, I was just going to say something about social sexual. To me, I see social sexual like sexual is just kind of like moth to a flame, right? Wherever the interesting thing is that can burn you, that can make you excited and whatever high, all that, you're going to go to it. So I find that social sexual people are a little bit more, I guess, what looks like frivolous, like these are my friends, or like I love my family, but only the people I actually really like. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I find the social self-pres people I know are a little bit more like, listen, if they're family, they're family. And if that's a birthday party, then it's a birthday party. Like stuff that's sort of a physical marker of a social event, or some kind of like literally but family is like a physical connection. They're like blood. So I feel like maybe social self-pres people of any type might value that more. What do you think about that?
A physical connection. That's a cool way to put that. Yeah, like a built upon thing. Yeah, so this is something that I was thinking about because like my best friend is a social sexual 7, and her
Mm,
and I like over the years have talked about like the differences and how we make connections. And I feel like her as a social sexual, she has a much easier time like getting to the fun, interesting, like juicy display
mhm,
thing that attracts
mhm.
people to her very quickly. It's like really tough. I'm much more, granted she's also an assertive type and I'm a 9.
Yeah.
So
7.
that's a
Yeah.
difference too, right? Yeah. But even still, like other social sexual 9s that I know have an easier time just kind of like putting themselves on display, to attract people. I don't think that I'm trying to attract people socially.
Okay.
On top of that, I feel like as a social self-pres, like I am looking for connections that are going to stand like on their own without a lot of like interaction. Maybe that's just me being like a lazy as fuck 9 too.
Yes, I feel like that's 9. My partner will do the same thing. Yeah.
I feel like there's a difference between like a fun, frivolous conversation. But like I can have a fun, frivolous conversation with someone and know that like those roots aren't going to go any deeper. So it's easy for me
Right.
to dismiss it. Like the self pres part to me feels like I'm looking for a social connection that's going to have like a foundation that's going to last.
Yeah.
I feel like that gives me like a pretty boring approach sometimes because like I'm kind of approaching all my social connections pretty seriously. But that I don't know, that's the main difference. Like I feel like I do have really long lasting um like stable connections, but I have a really hard time kind of throwing myself into like the fire in the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. So I have a good friend. I've had her for years. She's a social self-pres 9-wing 8. And I think she would say the same thing. I think our friendship has endured. I mean, I say endured, like it wasn't difficult, but like it's
No,
lasted
it's
a
a good
long
word.
time. I mean, I guess endured because like we don't actually spend that much time together, and every time we see each other, I feel. I mean, she's a 9, so, and she's Stockholm, but like it's the same kind of thing where I do feel like we have a connection, but it's hard. I mean, I'm gonna sort of get like I don't know abstracty, I guess here, but
No, go for it.
when I sit down with her, there is something that I mean we're close, but there's something where yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like she's like this is something that is true and it lasts, and we can just sit here and just
Hmm.
be together, and that's it. That's the friendship. Whereas like um, my friend Ikram, she's in the group. We just hung out a few days ago. She's social sexual 7 as well. It was the first time we
Hmm.
had met.
Oh,
And we
cool.
sat down together and it was like, yeah, we were friends within like 30 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, like it was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, again, so yeah, she's 7, but still it was just kind of like we were already talking about, I was like, yeah, so like tell me, like it was like 2 seconds and she was like, telling me something that was, I don't know. I don't remember what we talked about, but it was like very instantly raw, just like it's like social undressing, just kind of like
Sure, yeah.
yeah, and I don't get that sense with well any other stacking really, but it's like yeah, the second I sit down with a social sexual person, I again so yeah, when I met my partner 3 years ago, and he's very 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 quiet person, but it was the same kind of thing. It was just like there's just like like your chest is with anything with sexual, your chest is sort of cut open. Like I can
Hmm.
just put my
Hmm.
hands and pull out organs, heart, whatever in your brain. It's just kind of there's this a sense of openness that I'm not getting from social self-pres or really any other stacking.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I present as like super open or super like charged or like
Yeah,
any of that stuff.
yeah,
So that's like I have felt that that's a setback for my particular stacking because like obviously still being a social type, I want the social connection, and sometimes I
yeah.
feel like the self pres kind of inhibits me from like hooking it right away.
Yes. But the
Yeah.
lasting thing, I mean, what you said, I mean, that's, I guess, something, the reason, David links social sexual to 7, and that is multifaceted, that connection. Social sexual 7 is too, because it's like a fire that burns and then it's gone and everything's burned up. You know what I mean? So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, self-pres does, it is focused on lasting, right? Like it's, let's make this concrete visible. It's not just like, again, that's the nature of the sexual instinct. You come together, spiral, and then explode, and it's over. You know what I mean? Kind of like to the death sort of thing. And so that it kind of does that with social interactions too. Like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and then like, like it's sort of like
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
happens sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and even what you were saying about your social self-pres 9-wing 8 friend, like I do
yeah,
feel like I am that friend to my friends that they can like we can just pick up where we left off and then we just kind of like vanish until the next time.
Right.
Like, I don't think I'm the friend to like call up to go to like a cocktail party or to go to like some like thing and just like dance around flames with, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like a step behind that. I don't know if behind is the right word, but I'm like more of a background presence, I think.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's like, 9 with like combined with that kind of social self-res thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Feeling the difference between the two stackings was like very eye-opening for me. Like very eye-opening. It's like, man, they really are like worlds apart.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that the motivation is the same. It's just the style is so different. Hey everyone, this is Alexandra. This is just a quick plug for myself. As some of you know now, I have an Instagram account called @AngryEnneagram9, where I post 9 memes, and in my stories, it's a pretty interactive space where we're all just sharing 9ness and, talking and learning together. In tandem with this, I've started offering astrology readings. The reason this is helpful is because, especially attachment types, we need mirroring in order to really realize a lot of our potential. So birth chart can show you what that potential is. We're starting pretty basic, where I'm just kind of offering constructive insight based on what I'm seeing in the chart. So it's not open to just 9s. I've had some 6s, I've had some 2s, I've had some 3s come in. It's open to anyone. So again, you can DM me at AngryEnneagram9 on Instagram, and we'll start from there.
I mean, obviously, we all need friends of like all types, all stackings, and it'd be, as much as I love to say I hate this and hate that, it would be stupid to say that you like hate an entire. But I do find that I craved, like I made an effort to look for a partner, for example, who was social sexual. And when I do find, most of my friends are not social sexual because most people are just self-pres social. And so like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find that I crave that. Like I crave like that, again, that feeling of just sitting down and being like, oh, whatever it is that you're doing. Again, for me, it's like, I won't go dancing. I won't go to a club or whatever, but it's like, yeah, if we're just sitting and talking, that's my thing. Like I'm very chatty. So if I can do that with another person who is the same stacking as me, it is sort of like electrifying and something that I like need. And I don't know if you feel that, or if you feel kind of like more of an affinity with, because sometimes it helps, like, for example, 9s like to be often around people who have larger personality, so they don't have to like, I don't know, come out and exist so much all the time every second. So I don't know if you feel that way as well about the stacking. Or
that's so funny about the 9. That's I don't think I ever would have put it that way, but it's so true. Just like, let me be in my cave, you do it all for me, please.
Yeah, well, it's like, because you can just, especially with social 9, right? I see it. It's like, can I sit here and exist and present and just attach? Like I'm here, I'm attached. You know what I mean? I'm absorbing. It's 9s want other people to rev up the energy for them, and they can kind of glide on those waves. But like the 9 is not going to be the person who's going to like start that engine, especially not a sexual blind 9. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. With stackings, I don't know that I paid too much attention or like seek out particular stackings, but I have noticed that in the interactions that I have with other social self-pres, there is an instant kind of like, oh, this is like my species of people.
Yeah.
There is just like a style that they have that resonates with me. And maybe it's all of my attachment stuff that finds like relief, or I don't know if relief is the right word, but finds relief or some kind of like thrill in the resonance. So when I see somebody else that has like a similar style, I'm like, oh, thank God there's another one. Like that is like validating to my existence. Cool. But yeah, I do have an easy time with social self-pres. Like and maybe this is like a really disconnected way to say it, but there's like an instant respect that I tend to give them. There's just like a style in which that they present themselves and speak that feels like it mirrors the way that I try to present myself and speak. Yeah, it also, I think it just feels comfortable. I think because me having a self-pres middle means that there is like a don't get close to me kind of, at least that's how I experience myself, that like I do want social interactions, but I need you to stay like on the other side of that line. Don't come closer, or I get like stressed out, or you know what I mean? Like it's like Like all of my like order gets disrupted, and then I don't know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So sometimes that is nice, where I can have like obviously my best friend is a social sexual, so like I have friendships that are not my stacking, but yeah, there is an instant, like, again, a 9 flavor, there's an instant calm that I have with other social self presence, because we can generate this social energy without it feeling disruptive.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think social sexual is like deliberately disruptive,
Right.
because social self-pres can be actually the most like violent, disruptive, like stacking in a sense,
Uh-huh.
in
Sure.
one
Yeah.
way. But social sexual is almost like, yeah, it's again that like social undressing kind of disruptive.
Yeah. Well, we can even look at like politics and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
Tupac is a social sexual, so he is disruptive in like a pop culture kind of celebrity way.
yeah, and Eminem.
And Eminem, that's right. And isn't Martin Luther King, MLK is social self-pres, right? He's
Yeah.
a
Hmm.
an 8, and somebody else, Malcolm X, is social self-pres
Yeah,
6. So
Hitler.
there's like district. Oh, cool. Yeah, him too.
Yeah, fun.
So like structurally, we could say structurally disruptive as opposed to like a
Yes.
one-on-one kind of level.
Yeah, that's it. I'm trying to kind of map that out in my head. So yeah, social self-pres is like structurally disruptive. That's perfect. And then social sexual is like,
Like more on an immediate energetic level, maybe.
yeah,
Like we could
yeah,
say energy, sexual is energy, and self-pres is structure.
yeah. That makes sense, but it's not perfect. And I, at some point during
Yeah,
this
yeah.
call, maybe I'll figure it out. But yeah, there's definitely something there.
Why don't we go into what does closeness mean? Or even like
Yeah,
why don't we say like what is the aim of social? Like
yeah.
what is the
That's
thing
that's
that
a
we're
good
trying
question.
to secure?
Yeah. Okay.
Because I
Yeah. I
feel
mean,
like, especially to the sexual blinds that host the podcast, like there's clearly a lot of confusion on what the fuck social is. And sometimes listening to it stresses me out, because I'm like, that's not what we're talking about. That's
yeah,
not what it is. It's so much deeper than what you're saying.
yeah.
Well, I know that one of the common like instinct misunderstandings is that one-on-one intimacy continues to be attributed to sexual instinct,
Okay.
where
Yeah.
that is extremely social. Like a one-on-one
Absolutely.
intimate kind of like sharing or something is social. It's nothing else. It's fucking social as fuck.
It's just pure social. Yeah. Exactly. It is absolutely nothing else. And more specifically, I'd even say that, like, even if you're talking about your romantic partner, you are still like, when you have a partner that you live with, right? Like 90% of what you do every day is not the sexual instinct. It's just social stuff and self-press stuff. It's like, babe, what's that smell? Like, or like, did you
Right.
do the
Yeah.
laundry? Did you
Yeah.
fart? Or like,
Yeah.
you
What
know
are
what I
you
mean?
thinking?
Yeah. What are you thinking? Yeah. Or like, are we going to spend time together tonight? And like, why aren't we talking? And it's all social and self-press stuff, right? Like it doesn't matter that it's a romantic connection.
Mhm.
I actually think, I might be wrong about this. I actually think the sexual instinct is sometimes not even designed to be like it's not. Well, yeah, John has talked about this. It's not really like a monogamous instinct. When you're in a relationship with somebody for 10 years, you're not necessarily doing sexual instinct with them every day. Like that's not
Yeah.
what your life is. It's social. So, God, what the hell was the original question? I just can't like.
Oh, like what closeness is, and like what is social, basically.
Speaking of which, let's just
do it.
Because
I
it's
love it.
related. This is another problem with my stacking versus yours, is that like I cannot, like, it's groundless. It's that, again, it's that 7-ish thing. Like I don't know. I don't remember what I'm just sort of, again, it's sort of like moth to a flame. Like, oh, there's something else I want to say. Like I have to jump at that and just like dive into it and bathe in it. And it's not, and I've forgotten. Hopefully I have enough actual information for this to have structure, but it's not natural for me to speak in a structured way. So that's another kind of difference. Okay, remind me one more time what the question was.
Well, just to even bounce off of that, like
Okay.
that exact quality is one of the reasons, or is one of the like benefits that I get from being around social sexuals. Because sometimes I feel like I can try to display myself in too much of a structured way, that then the like energetic kind of sway, I tend to lose that. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I don't I forget to like focus on the juicy parts. So then when I can kind of like unstructure and float around, I feel like I do get my point across much better.
Yes,
And
yeah.
then in the other sense, like I feel like I'm pretty good at bringing us back down to, I'm speaking about my social sexual friend that I had mentioned earlier, but like when her and I are in conversations, I feel like it is me that brings us back to like, okay, this was the question. Let's go back.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it of course it depends on type too. Like I even have like, my tri-type is not really, well, okay, I don't know. 4 is totally kind of all over the place, but like, I have a 1 fix. So it's, if I'm with a social sexual 793 or something, I'm going to be the one who's maybe like bringing things back. Like it does depend on, but yeah, it is just this idea, because some people just speak in a scattered way, but with my stacking, it's almost like there's something interesting over there that I thought about. It's always important for me. It's almost a sort of 7-ish, like a selfish kind of like, I'm interested. There's fire over there. I always use the moth to the flame thing, because it's like, ooh, go over there. It doesn't matter what we were doing over here. Like if you were busy trying to build something up, I'm just like, oh, but you know what I mean? And I have to kind of jump to something else. And that's how I do closeness. That's how I do connections as well, right? Like this, it's almost selfish, because that's what the sexual instinct is, right? It's sort of just like objectifying selfish, and like you can kind of do social that way, because it's like, well, this person's interesting and this is interesting, and I'm going to go over here.
That's an interesting way to put that. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. What does closeness mean to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like what is social? And I guess I'm mostly asking that because I feel that the social blinds need that question answered.
Yeah.
Or even just fleshing out what intimacy is, because like I am under an impression, and under a very biased, obviously, impression, since I'm a social type, but I'm under the impression that all emotional intimacy is social. I might be totally wrong about that, but I see it as like you are seeing the other person for who they are. They are seeing you for who you are, and you get to enjoy and develop a love and a trust and a bond based on nothing selfish. Maybe that's biased too, because I'm saying that sexual is selfish, but based on no gain, maybe. It's just like, that's a beautiful flower and I just want to love that flower or something.
Yeah. Self-pres is stuff, bodies. Sexual is, again, just like the attraction strategies. It has something to do with like human beings as like people, like the whole, like it has something to do with identity, the entire concept of communication, identity, even song. Like social blind artists often have music that doesn't even have melody, because a melody is it's like a form of, it's like saying a sentence. It's a form of communication. It's like some kind of song, right? So it's like it is this, anything that has anything to do with communication, intimacy is social. Obviously, like true love, that kind of thing is or beyond instinct. It's kind of like something else. But yes, the need to form any kind of closeness, like as you said, in a way where it's not just like what's interesting to me, is social. And so we're always doing all three. You're gonna, like, I have sexual second, you still have sexual somewhere, and you're gonna be doing it. So it's hard. They're never isolated. So you're always going to feel sometimes where you're like, have that sexual thing, that's selfish, that like running towards whatever interests you sort of thing. But yes, this, like, to me, closeness, like, I'm just trying to think about how I've particularly like.
What would you say social juice is for you? Like, what's the kind of quality like in people that you look for? You mentioned depth. I'm sure that like, there's like a level of fun in there too.
Yeah. I feel like when I'm when I'm kind of in that social space, it's almost like throwing a ball back and forth kind of thing. You're just so excited, and there's a little bit of adrenaline when you catch the ball. Like you get a little bit of a high, and then you throw it back, and they caught it, and you're in this kind of synergy where you're like just doing this thing back and forth. But it's not. It's like not, you said, it's not selfish, because you need them to throw the ball to you, and you get a high off of seeing them catch the ball. Not just that they threw it to you, like you're like, oh, you caught it too, and I'm the one that threw it. That's cool. So this is kind of like back and forth, and it's like when it's really good, you're kind of whipping that ball back and forth really fast, and you're just in this like groove. And at some point it dips, and then the ball like falls on the ground, and you're just kind of like, okay, I guess we're done for today.
With the
you know what I mean?
ball,
Like you
yeah.
get tired. I mean, this is my very kind of like boorish, like, at some point I'm disappointed. I'm like, I'm bored of this ball. Like I look at it, I'm like, why did I ever want to catch this ball? But I did, and it felt really good while it was happening. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. You're so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting too, because like I resonate with like pieces of that, but I feel like my like flavor of it, maybe not having sexual as a middle instinct, is a lot more still. Like there is a sort of passing back and forth, and there is a
Yeah.
sort of like breathing in the air the other person is exhaling, and like back and forth like that. Like just like, who can I keep this sort of like breath cycle going with? But it is much more still. Like for me, it's almost like if I have nothing to offer a person and they still want to hang around, that's what a social connection is to me. Like almost
Right.
like, and maybe that's not even like, if I'm not,
That's
that doesn't
interesting. Yeah.
still doesn't feel super
it's not
right.
right,
Like I
okay.
feel like I'm close, but I feel like it's not super right. Like maybe it's me being sexual blind, that my flavor of social connection is if I'm not like exciting the other person and they still want to be around me, that's a social connection. If they're not exciting me and I still like care about them, that's a social connection to me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for me, there are definitely people I love that don't excite me 24/7.
Okay. Yeah. Fair.
But I also need, if we're not doing that ball thing, if I'm not getting a high off of it, I'm kind of just like, it sucks, but I will just like drop friends. Like I will just be like, we were friends back then. I like care about you. Like I legitimately feel like a love, but I don't ever want to see you again.
Okay,
just because
interesting.
you're not interesting. Yeah, like you're not, we're not that thing that I need when I'm sitting there and I'm just like, oh my God, throwing that ball back and forth, and it's so exciting, and I want to catch the ball and I want to throw it back to them, and it's really exciting. It's rare for me to, again, not have that moment where I look at that ball and I'm like, why did I ever want this? Right? There's only a few people in the world that I consistently can do that with. And if that stops, if I meet up with them a few times and I'm like, hey, we kept doing the ball thing and it just kept falling on the ground, I won't see them anymore. Like I won't even be, because I'll be like, I care about you, I love you, but no.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like maybe the social sexual stacking is a lot more immediate and active.
Yeah, and I think that the kind of negativity and like all the kind of the cutthroat thing that I'm talking about is really just like my trifix.
Sure. Yeah. There's
I think
four
there
flavor.
may be. Yeah, exactly. And I think there, like you said, there may be this sense of, because of sexual middle, of like play. It's also like sin flow. It's just like, let's play. We're going towards each other, that kind of thing. Like it's there's an immediate energetic thing that I need to hook into, or else I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's good. The towards each other is good too, because I don't think I experience that much, or like that's not necessarily something I look for. In fact, like sometimes the coming towards me stresses me out, and I have an immediate like, hey, back up. Like this is like it's not always, like sometimes it is like a real thrill to move forward, but I do feel like my instinct is to move back so that there's focus, so that we can just like, let's see, like you mentioned something about partners. I think like with my social self-pres stacking, my like the ideal that I look for, like this like fantasy that I've always had in my head of like the ideal partner, is something where we can be active with each other, but also the connection is still there when we're not active with each other. And maybe there is like the 9 flavor, but there is like a sort of like animal presence, animal disconnected but still connected kind of like energy that's there.
That's interesting, because, and again, I'm actually not even sure what to attribute this to, if it's my trifix or whatever, but I am very stressed out if, again, that ball drops, like, and I want to be like, it's almost like it's over, it's done. And I have to, you like feel like you have to pick that ball back up and do something. Cause you're like, how can we just sit here with that ball just sitting on the ground? Like, what the hell are we doing? We're not doing anything. And so it's, for me, that might be like conversation, but it could just be anything. It could be even like, let's go like, we have to just be in some kind of synergy. Like if I'm uncomfortable and you don't notice that I'm uncomfortable and I want to get up and move and you're like sitting, then we're not together. And it's like, I'm so stressed out about that I have to leave.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that leads to, maybe we can get into like what causes social anxieties and like how we're tracking closeness and like, you know, assessing relationships and stuff. because I notice like in my relationship history, what always stresses me out the most isn't necessarily when there isn't a back and forth. It's when I feel like we cannot get it. You
Okay.
know, like if I feel like it's not available to me, that's when I stress out. Like if I feel like when I want to engage, it's not there and available. Like we'll say like in my last relationship, there was a lot of like social interaction at first, and then like slowly kind of over time, it became this dynamic where like I could go to him and know that that ball wasn't going to be passed forward, you know, like passed
Yeah.
back and forth. I was like, oh, we don't do this. Like that's what stresses
Yeah.
me out. Like I need to know that like the function is still there if we're inclined to go there.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I think I mentioned at some point, I see a lot of self-pres social specifically, but probably just sexual blind in general. People like on dating profiles say stuff like, I'm looking for my best friend, I'm looking for my partner in crime. And then when they get married, they're just like, I'm so excited to be marrying my best friend. And I was like, do you fuck your best friend? Because like, I hope that he's not your best. Like, so that is really confusing to me because, you know, best friends, that kind of like term. And I actually, I call social sexual, or maybe David does, I don't remember, the best friend stacking because of that instant closeness and the way that everything's kind of frivolous. But still, I think about best friends in general are like, you know, we're standing side by side and we're holding hands and we're both looking forward, and that's partner in crime. Do you know what I mean? Because you both have to be looking. I see like the relationships I want as having to be face to face, like our faces are looking directly, our eyes are locking all the time. And you know, a romantic relationship, especially to me, is not partner in crime. We're not committing crime. Do you know what I mean? We're like one. We're like totally together. and same even with friendships. Like if I'm sitting down and I'm talking or whatever, I need to get some juice out of this. And if you're not looking right at me, do you know what I mean? Then and the side to side thing is what I feel sometimes with sexual blinds. And there's something nice about that. But because sometimes with like social sexuals, it's almost like it's too much. But still, it's like that's the way I'm gonna do it. Like, you know, the person's like trying to stand side to side to me and I'm like trying to peer around to see their face kind of thing. Like, can we look in each other's eyes? And that's, again, would be different if I were saying 963, like I'm really intense, like I'm just like too much. But still, I think that what a 963 would do, say with a social sexual stacking, would be similar to what you're doing, where you're like, it's more periodic because you have to kind of go back into yourself a little bit more. But I still think that when it happens, it's almost like I just completely melted into that person. I'm like done. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no boundary. I just totally like, melted down into this water, into this pool of people. And whereas I think you're probably better at actually just like putting up a wall, which, I mean, it depends if you need the wall or not, but.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to flesh out the differences between that because I relate to some of it, but then some of it I don't. So I'm trying to find that like common denominator there. Would you say, how do you feel about merging in a social instinct? Again, that could be a lot of 9 flavor, but like a lot of what I feel as social intimacy and like closeness and connection is a sort of like capacity to emotionally merge, even in friends. Like even in just like platonic friendships, if we can like be on the same like emotional way, if we have the capacity to be on the same emotional wavelength and like see things, this is pretty attachment, but maybe pretty 9 too, like see things the same way, even just know that it's possible, that feels like closeness to me. It doesn't have to be there all the time, but at least knowing that the capacity is there feels like something that I want to build on and keep and last.
So, okay, you know what I noticed with 9s versus like if I'm just thinking about different, like, the way I would do merging and closeness and connection and that kind of thing is 9s, like, you know, I see social 9s will do things where they will absorb my emotions so much that they've lost their own, not realizing maybe that's actually something they did that made me feel an emotion that was negative. So it's like without, just maybe without realizing it, like they did something, it made me upset, and now I'm upset, so they're upset. But
yes, I relate.
But and so they're just soaking up like the emotion, like we're one emotionally. Like as you were saying that, I was just like, oh yeah, that's sort of like what 9s do. When I'm doing it, it's more like I'm always, I don't know how to merge. Like that's not something I know how to do, but I do want to like, I don't want you to feel what I feel. I want you to have your own feelings, but I want us to like
meet somehow.
Yeah, like meet, or I don't know, discuss them, or understand, or I think this is a conflict between like hexad and because I do want closeness, but it will never be like, okay, yeah, I think so. This is it. I think sometimes like nines like will lose themselves in do you know what I mean? I'm just feeling what you're feeling. Like it's so much empathy. I've never felt that. Sometimes like, if you were upset, I would sort of get upset, but I'd be like mad at you. I'd be like, stop that. You're invading me, and I don't want to feel that. And I'm gonna immediately like, okay, let's try to fix this. Can we talk about it? Like, why are you feeling that way? Whatever. And then the nine will sense my energy as being angry and then feel my anger. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like it's all emotional sucking. And I'm like, wait, I just wanna kind of, so I do want us to connect. I think that we both like want that like closeness and that connection, and it's really important for socials to like to kind of constantly be monitoring that. But there's a really different way that we would be doing it. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're talking about like an accidental empathy, and I'm talking about like this very kind of like let's get out a clipboard and start kind of drawing lines and seeing,
Yeah, that's really interesting. I can absolutely see myself in that. Like there are definitely times where my partner's upset and I just like, it's like I just get like sucked right into it. And suddenly I'm in that place too. Or another thing that happens to me as a social nine sometimes is I can feel him, like I can feel his emotions flare up. I can feel some kind of like storming happening, because he's 4. I can feel some kind of like storming happening there. And then it like enters my thing and I'm like, he's upset. The social, and this is my social tracking. I was like, he's upset. Is he upset with me? We have to address this right now. But then it can be difficult because I can lose my sort of external place and get sucked into it. And then we're just in his space. And I'm like, well, fuck, the social thing is like, we're fucked. Now, what do we do? I can't get out of this. You're upset. I'm not outside of it to be able to help you.
Yes, exactly.
But that is like part of my like social anxiety is just like, I need things. And especially as a 9 too, like, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you like the meeting, you like to, what's the, not parallel, perpendicular. You like that meeting point.
Yes.
But let's see, what's the rest of my sentence?
Yeah.
It's like I guess it's like the meeting without the full merging, like be your own person still.
It's not merging. Exactly. It's never merging. But it's definitely like connecting, linking. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like, I have fingers, you have fingers, we can like link them together, but we're not just going to kind of smush them together into one big gelled thing.
Right.
And what you're saying is this happens all the time where, exactly. Like my emotions will be all over the place and my partner will sense them, maybe think there's something wrong, and then immediately like retreat because he can't even handle it. And then I'm mad because I'm like, well, I'm social. So I'm like, where are you? Wake up, come back to me. But then he can't, he's already absorbed me. So it's like, I need to give him like 2 hours to like get me out so that we can talk about like, you know what I mean? And I want to talk about it now because I'm perfectly aware of like what I want to say and what my thing is. And then of course, I'm sure like the more a 9 gets kind of like overwhelmed and confused, the more they're like, I don't know what I'm saying and it's wrong. And then the other person's reacting even more because you're saying something. You're like, wait, that wasn't even what I meant. But they're like, what?
Yeah. So embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. That's an interesting dynamic. The social 4, social 9. It even just a social 9 with a social fine 4.
Yeah. I think we have a lot to relate to on this.
Yeah.
But I mean, I keep bringing up, like, I don't know, I can't help but bring up the 9-4 thing just because I think it's impossible for us to talk about. I think the mistake that some people make when they get into the Enneagram or whatever is they learn one concept, like instinct, and then everything in their life is somehow related to that one thing. And it's like, this is really all a synergy. Like, I feel strange just talking about social sexual because I keep thinking about like, wait, but like, would all the other social sexuals I know even relate to what I'm saying? So I keep wanting to kind of contrast, what you're saying, but I don't know. It's probably just making this really scattered. I don't know.
I mean, I think even this could probably be another example of like social, I don't know, something is like we can only speak to our own perspectives. Like, so I feel like me as a social type, I'm trying to share myself, not necessarily the information I know, but just like myself. Well, like what's more important than the information about myself? That's the value.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, even us making reference to the fact that we're both in 4-9 relationships and knowing that that's something we can relate to is like a social aim.
Yeah. I was just kind of thinking meta about this whole podcast in general, and I'm thinking about the usual kind of like dynamic that's probably on the podcast, and I'm like, this is going to be so different.
Oh
because
yeah.
we're like full on having like a conversation, and connecting. I feel sometimes, if I'm talking to social blinds, that like we go from just talking shop, like just talking about that thing that interests us or whatever, because it's like connecting on sexual in a way, like, okay, what's that spicy thing we both like talking about, the enneagram or whatever, and then maybe we'll talk about each other's personal lives. But when social blinds talk about their personal lives, it's always slightly like there was no segue to that, like you're just like, oh, okay. But like I feel like with the two of us on this call, we're kind of, without saying it, I think that if we listen to it back, besides how like there's two things. One, we are being so awkward right now because like it's just like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like we've I don't think we've ever talked on the phone before.
No.
So this is our first meeting, and it's really difficult for us to just, I think, just kind of like gel and chill. And that's something that like we're not able to stop doing social as we even talk about social. So we're trying to like get accustomed and get into, again, trying to throw that ball back and forth or whatever. And it's new. And the other thing is like, yeah, we're actually having a conversation with each other, like as human beings, which is something that I don't think social blinds do.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that there is, in speaking to like the meta thing that you were talking about, like I think the dynamic of this episode is going to be really different because we have, how do I say this? Like, and maybe they'll disagree, but from what I can see out from like an outside perspective, which is, we'll come back around to that, which seeing from an outside perspective is also super social, is that I feel like we sound like we're talking to each other.
Yeah.
As opposed to like delivering information. Yeah. I mean, like, what else would we do?
I'm sort of like, because I'm like, okay, I really want to talk about all this information that I have, but I'm also like, I don't really know you. And so I was like locked between like overwhelmed by like new person, person I like, but like it doesn't matter. I don't know you. So I'm again, it's the fourth. I'm like, everything is no to me, like no new person, no new, I don't, like, you know what I mean? And so that was like almost like I couldn't even, it was hard for me to talk about the information because I was still trying to also process you as a human being. And I think,
totally.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you were feeling the same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I had my whole anxiety knowing that it was just going to be you and I, because I was like, we don't have like a relationship yet. Like, how are we going to do this? Even my first time being on the podcast was with the 9 call. And it was David, Emeka, John, Nancy, and Tara. So I was the only social type on there, and it was my first time on the podcast. And I was like, I'm gonna throw up. How am I fucking gonna do this? And then by the third time I was on the episode, it was just like I was like, okay, I know you guys. I know the dynamic. I know how we flow together. So easy.
Yeah, I did the 4 podcasts, and so obviously I've known Emeka and David, but it was still the sort of thing where I'm on it, and I'm like, I even just find podcasts like this is strange in general because I can't see you and I don't know. Like, okay, this is another aspect of social that is really missing. I think this is why too they like love the podcast format. I'm loving the videos I'm doing because I can look at them and interact and see their facial expressions and talk right to them. At least it feels like it. The podcast is sort of strange, and it's like, again, now that I have some space, and I'm like, it is hilarious that social blinds were just like, you guys just like go on like this Zoom meeting and like you've never talked before, but like you're both social, like that's enough to connect you, right? Like you don't have to think about anything else, not realizing that, I mean, it's fine, we can do it, but yeah, there is a crap load of stuff that we are processing, we have been processing, that has nothing to do with like the material. Like we're trying to talk about the material, but we were doing it. Like the episode is just listen to us doing social.
yeah. And it's also listening to us getting to know each other while we talk about this information. Yeah,
exactly. So that actually, and that's another aspect of social, is like awkwardness. Social blinds are awkward in the sense that you're like, did you not notice that? But they're also not awkward because they don't care.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
not concerned with the things that are awkward. Like, to point out a situation being awkward, you have to have social awareness that it's awkward.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like another part of our dynamic just now in this is like, yeah, we both know the material, we both know how to talk about the material, but there
Mhm.
is this extra energy that we're both distracted by the social part.
Exactly. It's a distraction. It's it's almost like, and I even feel like, I'm sure self-pres social people like relate to this in some way as well, but there is still a sense that, like, in a self-pres social world, when you're like, okay, there's a new meeting and there's like 80 people there, and you're like, who the hell is in this room? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
you're sort of asked to speak about something really dry, and you're like, I can't even, who's that person? Like, I'm just sort of overwhelmed with, like, I don't know how to talk to this person. And especially, I think this is even worse with social sexual, but it's like, I don't know how to be proper, professional, whatever. I don't know what that means. I don't have, for me, I just kind of say, again, it's sort of seven-ish, like, I'm going to say what I want to say thing. So
Mm-hmm.
in professional settings, it's this kind of this self-pres social sort of dry, not that it's not, self-pres social people aren't dry, but it's like this setting of like, okay, we're just in a meeting. We're just all physically here and we have to discuss a matter. You can do that, right? And I'm like, I don't know you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like, I feel like it has a lot to do, or with self-pres social, it has more to do with, well, less to do with who they are as a person. Like, they're just delivering information. It has not, nobody cares about, this is me pretending I'm a self-pres social. Like, well, who cares what, it's not about me as a person to know right now. It's about the material.
Exactly.
And I feel like as a social type, that is like the overarching theme that I'm constantly working with. Like, everything that I'm like saying and doing and presenting and posting on social media is creating this image of who I am. And so, like, maybe that's part of, like, at least for me, that's part of the dynamic between you and I, is like, the more that I talk, the more I'm like revealing myself as a person. And as a social type, I see that as like the most important thing, of course.
Yeah, there's nothing else that matters. And also, I feel that, yeah, revealing myself as a person, and also, like, how do I talk to you? Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know who you are yet. I don't know. So, like, even as a hexad type, as a social, I have some ability to, like, adapt. I'm not going to adapt to the point where it's not that 9 accidental empathy thing. Like, but I sort of, like, there are different pieces of me that are like, this person's more fun, this person's more bitchy, angry, whatever, that kind of, like, they're all me. But and again, so I know we've like 9 say this all the time, and we're like, not a 4, but it's true for everybody. We all have different facets of ourselves, and I do have some ability to adapt. And I don't know how yet, because we don't have, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like social violence. Like, okay, we're on the call, let's just talk. And I'm like, but how do I talk, like, to you? It took, when I started working with David and Emeka, it took so long for me to be like, how do I talk to these guys? Like, who are they and what do they want? Like, I realized that they weren't tracking any of those things. They, you know what I mean? And so that's why it was so confusing for me, because I was like trying to figure out how to do this thing, this social. And I don't lose myself when I'm doing it. It's just like, but I still have, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, when I was a kid, I was afraid to ride the bus because I was like, what if I don't know where to put the change and I don't know anybody on that bus? And then they look at me and they see me as somebody who doesn't know how to ride the bus. And I don't belong there now. So I just have to leave, and I'm not going to ride the bus.
Right. How do you feel like reputation plays into being a social type for you? Because we can also, another thing we can get into is the more micro scale of social, which is like the one-on-one, versus the macro, which is like the celebrity kind of reputation, legacy kind of shit. Because, like, I do have experience with knowing that I am like the subject of a rumor, and that has some energy around it for me. It's this like kind of anxiety of like, oh, that's right, other people are in charge of my image to a certain degree.
Yes.
Because, like, I'm not an image type in the sense that I'm not a heart type, but I do feel like social has a lot of imagey stuff.
Yes.
So I have related to that. Not necessarily, like, sometimes it stresses me out, sometimes it doesn't, because, like, it's out of my, maybe I'm just nining and it's out of my hands, whatever.
No, I get that. Yeah.
But there is like there is like a more macro scale of social that does have an effect that I am also tracking, but I'm not sure how yet, I guess.
Yeah. I was thinking about the thing you said about like being the subject of a rumor. Um, so I'm sort of used to people talking about like us, the admins, like because we run a group. But ever since we started the videos, like people have been sort of commenting and talking, and it's like because my face is on video now, all of a sudden people know me, and that's for me, at least with drawn social type, like really uncomfortable. Like I don't actually. So I had this whole website about the Enneagram. This is how Emeka and I started talking, how we met. I had this whole website. He found it and was like, oh, there's a lot of information here. So he messaged me and said, hey, is this your website? It was no hi, how are you? It was just like, hey, is this your And I was literally like, and I took me like 8 months to respond to him because I was like, I don't know why. I was like, I'm not ready to expose myself to the Enneagram community. The fact that I even say the words Enneagram community is like that's social. Like I was like, it was some gated place that I couldn't step into yet. And so I finally responded and was like, yes, it's mine. But I was so terrified because I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm not ready to step in, like I can't do it. I don't want
so
people to know me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I resonate with that. Like, obviously, like John and I getting together and people knowing that we're together has been a point of like energy for me too, because that is kind of like me being known in a different way, me being like framed in a different way that can also make me uncomfortable. So yeah, that is that like it's outside of the personal one-on-one level, and it's kind of like an awareness that like whether or not I'm involved, there is an image, there is like an avatar, so to speak. Like I'm sure that where at first I was just known as like a 9, I was just known as like some 9 in the group. And now it's, the 9 that has been on the podcast, or like the 9 that is now John's girlfriend, so there's all this like extra stuff that sometimes I don't even like, people can see me in a way that I'm not consenting to, or that like I don't want it to be my, like, this is not the description I would write for myself.
Yes, right, exactly. It's sort of image management. I mean, there's a lot of again, like stuff. I think I was trying to say that earlier, but a lot like people will say all kinds of negative stuff about Enneagrammer, and it's part of the course, and it's just kind of like what I mean. We deal with some sensitive material, and I sort of understand it. But when I'm like called out, or attacked or whatever, which has happened many times since we started the group, it really, really unsettles me. It's not like I personally care about like this person's
opinion.
Sure. It's exactly what you said. It's like, I don't have any control over this social avatar. That's exactly what it is, right? I don't have any, I'm trying to create it. I'd like to create it. Or just be authentic somehow. But, especially like, if people are like misinterpreting things that I say and I can't really explain myself, it's very, very stressful. Whereas David and Emeka are just kind of like, if that's not important, like, why are you wearing that? And I'm like, but it's sort of like, it's like the most important thing in some way, even though this person maybe is not important,
Right. It becomes like kind of what I'm hearing is that it becomes less about this kind of like nobody's personal opinion and more about the image that could be spread out to other people.
Yeah. You're like, what am I doing that? Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like, okay, it's not this person, but it's just like, oh, like this is now, first of all, this person got the wrong thing from me and now they're spreading it. So everyone's going to get the wrong thing. And I don't have any problem with being seen as like bad or whatever, if it's honest. I just don't like, like it's, I don't care about that. I don't have any like, I'm good. I'm not good. But like, I just, it just has to be, when I am being good, I want to at least to be seen as what I am. Whatever I am, I just want to be seen that way, whether it's negative or positive. And it's very stressful, which is why, again, it was really hard for me. I've been studying the Enneagram for years, and it took me so long to just like, respond to Emeka's message, like, create a Facebook group, post in it, and then, oh my God, go on video. We've been talking about making these videos and I'm enjoying them now, but we've been talking about making them for years. And, they had their own reasons for not wanting to go on video. It's just like, oh God, I have to do this social thing that I'm not used to doing. And for me, it was like, I actually can do this and I enjoy doing it, but it's still a point of like adrenaline, anxiety to just like, I am putting my face out there. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, you're revealing more of yourself.
And it's going to be taken, as you said, the wrong way. Like people are going to create this avatar and you just can't manage your image for everybody. It's not possible. And so you almost have to detach from it. And that's hard.
Yeah, that is very difficult. And that leads me to like, yeah, like reputations and avatars and stuff like that. And like how a lot of it, of course, leads to like rumors and gossip and stuff like that feels very social. Like it feels like that all falls
Yeah,
under the social realm. And how
yeah,
even like being the subject of a rumor or being the subject of gossip is really just like being fodder for other people to connect to each other.
yes, yeah,
Because like how
yeah,
many times, like even me, like how many times have I just like talked shit about someone and then developed this like, doesn't have to be a lasting connection, but at least
sure,
connected to someone on like a mutual hatred or like a mutual funny
yeah,
thing or like a
yeah.
mutual like, yummy kind of delicious thing. But yeah,
Oh
gossip
yeah,
and I think gossip is popular because it uses somebody's image to create a social connection with somebody else. It's having common ground with somebody
hmm
in knowing information about somebody else.
it's a super common way to connect is to gossip. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, exactly. It's sort of like, am I, do I want to put myself in the place where I'm, and it's again my six fix kind of coming up a lot, but like, yeah, do I want to put myself in the line of fire, so to speak? Very like six language, but like, am I going to be the one that everybody uses that way? And I don't want to be. I just want to. I honestly just want to put out the information, and I don't really want to be. I don't know, talked about.
Right. Like
Again,
a
maybe if I were
personality.
like yeah, exactly, like maybe if I were like a social 7 wing 8 or something, I'd be like, you talk about me, like this is fun, like I'm just eating this up, or who knows. But like for me, I'm just like, no, I don't really want to answer to anyone, and I don't really want to be like, I want to be out there but not too out there, right? Still a
Mhm.
withdrawn type. I don't actually want to, yeah, I don't want to sort of jump out there too much, but I kind of have to.
Yeah, that makes me wonder what the difference, like if most like social media influencers, I'm sure they're mostly social, or at least have social in their stacking. I can't imagine a social find would
Well,
be
yeah,
like
but
selling
do you
FabFitFun boxes on Instagram. Anyway, go ahead.
sorry, yeah, do you feel like, because it's like what I was saying earlier, I feel that these things, like this whole meeting, for example, or yeah, doing something like video, putting myself out there, it's an adrenaline booster on some level, because you're like doing the thing, you know what I mean? Like this is the thing, this is what matters more than this. But it's also like, it's also stressful, like to the point where like if you're like, maybe a withdrawn type, it's like, I'm just going to avoid it. I don't want to do this too much. I can't even, like, you know what I mean? Like, do I need like a week's worth of adrenaline? Then like, no, maybe I won't go do that video, or I won't post online, or you know what I mean? Just because I don't need like, yeah, the just the feeling of being out there so much is so stressful. Like it feels good but also bad.
Mhm. Yeah, I do relate to that. Let me think really quick. What David's like sundial thing? Okay, let's see. Social. I know that he
Sundial.
attributes, yeah, his like little sundial thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I know social self-pres is, I think he attributes it to the one, and
yeah.
then social sexual, you said is 7,
7, yeah.
right? Or 2? Oh no, 7. Yeah, okay.
7, yeah.
And
Sexual
he
social
also,
is 2.
okay. Yeah, so he also, I'm not just working with this because this maybe falls in line with some of what you're saying, is like he attributes social to air or to
Yeah,
sunlight. And
yeah,
so maybe some of putting yourself out there is like, I don't want all that fucking sun on me right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And like the reason I bring up social media influencers is because I have to imagine that they're mostly like 6s and 3s and 7s and maybe
yeah,
some 8s every now and then, but like people that like, I'm sure there are 9s too and 4s too, maybe, who knows. But I imagine the withdrawn types are not going to as regularly put themselves out there because they need time out of the sun.
yeah, exactly. And this is why I mean, there are a lot of 9s, so it's not hard to find 9s. But in terms of the other two withdrawn types, there already aren't that many, but it's really hard to
Mhm.
find them. And then yeah, I guess people think that we're just like not typing them because we like want to keep them for ourselves or something. It's
Right,
ridiculous.
right.
But I mean, no, it's just it's hard to find them. And yes, I'm sort of kind of out here doing this, but like it's life-giving for me, but also really stressful. Like this is not easy for me to be this out there.
Well, yeah, it is like our sacred place. It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
it's the most important place. So to like expose that to people that are not gonna maybe see it as precious as we see it is stressful.
Yeah, and you're kind of raw in that area too. Like I don't trust myself to be, on one hand, I think we have more social intelligence than the social blinds, but on the other hand, sometimes I'm so overwhelmed by it that I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, that makes me think of like what your anxieties would have been about making those videos versus Dave and Amika making those videos. Like I imagine, I mean, of course, just speaking for them, but I imagine, I wouldn't even say that they had social anxiety, maybe. Like maybe it was just like, oh, why do I need a camera on my face?
That's what it was. Exactly. It was like, why am I looking at my face? It's almost like, it's like social as mirrors, right? Like I'm looking right at myself and I'm that means I can see what other people see of me, and I'm being forced to see my own reflection, which is me. I'm being forced to see social. That's what we do all day, is like look at our reflections because we know other people are looking at us. You know what I mean? And so it's anxiety in a different way, where it's like, why do I don't want to see this. It really, I mean, it's still social anxiety at the end of the day. Just coming to a place of a blind spot versus the dominant.
Yeah. How do you react to some of their like social blind like giveaways or something? Like I guess the thing that comes up for me is like sometimes they've expressed like surprise or confusion at people knowing them, or like feeling that this sort of like parasocial dynamic. And I'm like, well, of course you guys are talking to each other all the time, you're revealing yourselves as personalities all the time, of course these people think they know you. Like of course that's like something to like watch like TV.
It's funny. It's always so like I had this really great conversation with Emeka about parasocial dynamics. We're on the phone and he sort of explained this whole kind of dynamic to me, and I like, because I liked it because we were talking about it from an analytical way, but he was also explaining it to me as if it was like a discovery, and I was like, right,
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
It's like welcome to the party, man. Yeah, we know that.
What? Like this is my air. Like, what are you talking? Like, of course, like like this is why I've avoided this being in the public eye or whatever for so long for this very thing. It's sort of funny to kind of like be like, I don't understand why you didn't already know this. It's sort of like it's interesting with social blind because being self-pres blind, self-pres is so obvious and it's so concrete and everybody's self-pres, so there's nothing you can tell me that's news, but it does sort of feel like I don't really have to think about that. Like you guys are all losers for like I see people running in the morning and I'm like, loser, like why? You don't have to take care of your body. Running doesn't even do anything. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, what the heck? Like it's a sort of like immaturity about that blind spot that you're like, I know that this is just like facts. Like, yes, I should be like going for a run in the morning with that person wearing the like spandex Lululemon shorts and like you know what I mean? I'm just like, God, it's so like I'm just like, this is so stupid. Like, why are you doing this? But it's like, it's not stupid. You know what I mean? It's a different reaction where like you can't surprise me with self-pres, but I reject it. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's so stupid. Like I can't believe anyone would do any of that crap. Like why are you lifting a heavy object and then putting it back down? It's like, what is that? Like, why do you need your muscles to be bigger or whatever? Like it's so dumb. But it's the same kind of thing with them where it's like they're like, can you believe that other people see us? I'm like, yes, I can. Yes.
Oh, you're so funny. Yeah, that is good. Yeah, when I hear them like get confused about other people seeing them, like, where do you think you've been this whole time? Yeah, it's
imagine
super bizarre.
Living like that. Like I can't. How do you not? What do you do? What are you thinking about when you say words?
Right. Yeah, there is like social, so like self-pres blind shocks me in a different way, but sexual blind is like the water I live in, so I'm like, yeah, that's a normal person. But there is something there is something like about social blind that I'm like, it feels very like they have depersonalized themselves sometimes, or like I think I said this once, there is like a certain flavor of like self-objectification without the personal, without the name to it. That shocks me.
Well, they don't. I get this without the name. I mean, that's sort of that's interesting because I feel like one thing that social sexual does in a weird way is like give things nicknames. Like, okay,
Mhm,
we're this group. We're the like cool kids. We're the this. We're the like
That's
let's
right, yes.
name, and like everything has to have a name and a badge and an icon, and you know what I mean. And so I think social self-pres like does that, like
Yeah.
shields, crests, badges, a lot of that kind of like uniform, whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the thing that social blind is not. They are not. And also sometimes like when they're talking to you, this just turned into like a social blind roast, but like what else
I
are we
know,
gonna do?
that's okay, let's do it.
Yeah. When they're talking to you, they're not really talking to you. You know what I mean? Like I have a lot of social blind friends that like I don't know. I don't mean it as an insult. I get like I actually in some ways I like it because I don't know, I'm a 4 and I don't actually want anyone to touch me or get close to me most of the time. But but there is something that it's like, you're talking and I could literally be hanging myself in the corner and I'd be dead for 5 minutes and you turn and be like, you know what I mean? Like you didn't notice that I wasn't listening to you, wasn't interested, wasn't really connecting with you, or the opposite. Like I'm really interested and I'm really connecting and they still don't notice or care or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that is so funny. Yeah, there is this like obvious way that they're not like tracking the other person. Like, of course, like in a sexual way, sure. But like on a personal level, there is God, it's so funny.
Yeah.
There is this like way that they're not tracking. Like I've noticed John's right next to me, so he's just gonna hear me roast him a little bit.
No. Perfect.
Like John and I have this let's see, like sometimes when we're like walking around town, John will walk ahead of me and like not realize that he's like leaving me behind. Or it's like, dude, hello, I'm like 10 feet behind you. Fucking wait for me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this thing of like, it's so mission oriented until we get to the place. And then we get to the place and he's like, okay, yeah. So anyway, I'm like, hello, did you not realize that we were disconnected the whole way there?
Yeah, I think, you know what, I mean, this wasn't supposed to be a social blind roast, but I think it's interesting because it really, I mean, what better way to contrast? Like, it's hard to explain what social is if you don't explain what it isn't.
Yeah, and I think it's good. And I'll say too, to like balance it, what you were saying about how sometimes it's nice to be around social blinds.
Yes.
Like, I find it as like a huge relief. Often because like I know that he's not tracking that they're not tracking the same things that I am. Like it's just like not an anxiety. Like sometimes actually being around other social dominants can be this extra stressor because especially of course this is me being a 9, but like I'm like, oh, they're uncomfortable, I need to make this comfortable for them. Like, oh, is this actually, you know what I mean? Like there's this double dose of anxiety that with the social blind it's just like, no, they don't care about that. Like they're not tracking it. So I can like safely disconnect without them thinking it's real. It's disconnecting. You know what I mean? Like they're not being triggered by the same things that I am. So I can just chill for a second.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. There's a good and a bad, right? Because that's the good. Absolutely. And then the bad is that like all that's great. But then when you're like doing your thing, you know what I mean? And they didn't notice any of the things that you were doing. You're sort of like, I don't know how to, you kind of lose yourself because you're like, how am I supposed to communicate or exist now if this person's not tracking? Like, I don't, how are we doing this? But you kind of learn, in that case, it just becomes sort of friend by friend. You're just like, I don't, you kind of are like, oh, they're not listening to me right now, or this is just how it's going to be or whatever. You just kind of learn them. But that's what we're trying to do with socials. I need to learn you. And it's just easier to do it with socials because they're sending you all these signals and they're trying to learn you too. It could be a completely negative connection. It's not always positive, but you're still trying to learn the other person. You could be trying to learn how to piss them off, right?
I mean, I think sometimes even with like the negative reputation that the group has sometimes, like that is still social. How do I say it? That is like still like a social sort of marketing strategy of like, oh, let's just be the like provocative, group that just pisses people off kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, definitely not doing it on purpose, but that's sometimes what happens. Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah. How do you feel social disruption? We can just kind of cover this really quickly. Like I'm a super relationship oriented person. I think being a withdrawn type, that's where I get most of my social juices in these like one at a time thing. Like in a big group, I can get overwhelmed pretty quickly. So it's like,
I don't do groups at all. Yeah.
Yeah. do not like groups, which is interesting too, because like another misconception I think is social keeps getting attributed to groups. Like fuck groups. I hate groups.
Yeah.
It's not
Absolutely
groups.
hate them.
Okay,
I
so
don't
just to
know
clear that
any
up.
social dom that, well, I never want to say things this simply, but I don't know a social dom who like loves groups. I know of lots of self-pres social people who like groups and one-to-one.
That's interesting. Yeah, with social as a play zone.
The social is a play zone, exactly. I'm trying to think of like, I don't know. I think there's some, it depends. Like sevens, for example, they're kind of just cool with everything sometimes. So it does depend. If you're not a picky person, you're not going to be picky in general. But I do find that social doms are the ones who are like, if there's one extra person at that table that I don't want to see, I'm just going to stay home.
That's funny. Yeah. How do you track like when the social connection's been disrupted, or like how do you like what does that do for you, and like how do you know it?
I feel like I'm wildly in tune with like how much attention and energy I'm getting from a person, which is why I like insist on one-to-one. And so if somebody kind of like comes in and starts talking, that's horrible. Or if I don't know, or if our conversation just like completely goes dry or something, that's horrible. I think again, that ball back and forth metaphor. I mean, it's kind of simple, but it sort of works because it's in the air, and it's also, it takes effort from both people. It's reciprocal.
Yes.
It gives you an adrenaline rush. It's fun, but it's also difficult, and you can do it at different speeds. Like so all of that kind of plays into, and if it slows down or the ball drops or you miss it or the person didn't want to catch it or whatever, like that, all those kinds of like the tiniest little things, like, you notice, like I said something and they didn't smile or they didn't look me in the eye, or they started talking about their own thing, which means they didn't care about my thing. I'm not interesting. We're not connecting. I have to go,
Interesting. Yeah. So that makes me think of something I was talking about. I don't know, maybe it was like a week ago or a couple days ago. I attribute it to like astrology and having like a different Mercury sign than this person. So like I was recounting this like relationship that I was in where the sort of communication, like the back end, because social is a lot of communication. So I wonder if there's a relationship with Mercury in general. But Mercurial is second in Michael's teachings. Anyways, so one of the things, like one way that I can measure, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like one of the ways that I can measure connection is that reciprocation, is that sort of like mercurial creativity, this sort of pinging back and forth. And like, I remember in a past relationship, like that was such a place that the ball would drop constantly, because like, I do like that passing of the ball back and forth. Like you said, that's actually a great metaphor. The more I like really sit with it and let it resonate. In this particular relationship, I would try to like have this ball go back and forth, and then he would just say like the final punctuation mark, and it was this thing of like, oh, I'm getting like, this is like the opportunity for me as a sexual blind. Like I do get a lot of arousal out of the social space, out of that like communication pinging, this like sort of like verbal creativity. So when it just gets this like final punctuation mark so early, it's like being cut off like so early. It's like, come on, this is not gonna get me anywhere at all.
Yeah.
So like, I do think that in relationships and in friendships, there needs to be a capacity to have that. I don't know, maybe this is an arrogant way to say it, but this sort of like intellectual creativity. Like, can we just like build castles in the sky back and forth and like work together on it? Or is it just going to be me doing it and you responding to it? Because that's boring.
Yeah, I think even social seconds will feel that as well. Like that need to, I think everybody feels that, like, wants intellectual stimulation. I just think with social, it's like tied into like, this person is connecting with me. It's not just information, but they're saying it. And they're doing it in their way, and I'm responding it. And so we are like now together. You know what I mean? I'm not just throwing a ball to some robot and they're throwing it back, or computer. It's like, this is a person. I could get this information if I wanted to. We have all the information we need, but it's better to get it this way and connect. And you're again, you're not just getting it. You're throwing the ball back and then you're catching it again.
Yeah, I feel also, just to ping off of that, I feel like also as a social type, it's rare that I'm going to be delivering information if it doesn't somehow relate to me. Like if it doesn't somehow relate to like my experience. Maybe this is me being body type too, but like like, you know, me talking about social, I'm obviously talking about my experience as a social type, or me talking about like a different experience or a different stacking is going to be my experience with a sexual type, or my experience with a what's the other one, self-pres type.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so it isn't
people-based.
necessarily like a textbook delivery. There is like a personal, it's like saturated in my personhood, and we're working with that.
I also find just in that sort of like people focused thing that I talk about myself, but I also instantly will start talking about people as a whole. Like if you ask me something like, what's your favorite Beatles song? I'll say something like, well, I think a lot of people like this song, and this is how people like. I'm instantly like, I can't just answer. I know what I can tell you my favorite song is, but I'm now aware that what I say is in some larger context of like what everybody else thinks and likes, and you know, as a 4, I might try to pick some stupid unique thing or whatever. like the thing that you don't expect or whatever. But it's like, you know, I'm hyper aware, and I even in my speech I will automatically, which is, you know, I think probably what makes me good at being able to talk about the Enneagram in my own way is that like I'm not talking just about myself. It relates to me, as you said, but like I'm like now I'm like seeing all people. You know what I mean? Like let's talk about 9s, and that's a large group, and I can talk about. I'm only going to be able to talk about it because I've experienced 9s. If I haven't, then I don't care to talk about it. But I'll widen my speech. You know what I mean? Like doesn't it ever ask you a question about yourself, and you are answering on behalf of everyone?
Yeah. Well, I feel like maybe that's a way to like include other people, or like a way to kind of like broaden and widen the net or something. Maybe I'm off with that.
Like I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like I don't care if you feel included. It's more like
okay.
I mean, no, I do, but like it's not. I think I'm just doing it because that's just how those are the lenses I'm wearing. I'm not just seeing, you know, even if we're the two of us, we're sitting here and I want us to have this conversation, throwing ball, whatever. But we're sitting in a restaurant with a bunch of people, and that restaurant's in a city, and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? We're always just kind of in the whole world, and even if people aren't directly looking at me now, you know, they can
be. That's funny. That's a little main character energy there. I don't know that I would have come to that myself, but that feels like something. Yeah,
it's just kind of like larger context.
So this is maybe embarrassing, but we might as well. Do you this might just, the ball might drop here, but do you watch, or like how do you feel about reality? Well, okay, I'll just say it. Like I do have a fascination with reality TV because it is watching
you're
all
talking
of these.
To a 4, so you're like embarrassed. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I like, there is this sort of like, I love reality TV, not because I think it's going to teach me anything or deepen anything about my like, you know, whatever, but it's just because I love watching like these different personalities just kind of walk through the jungle that is the social realm. And some people do it. Some people are very skilled at it. Some people really suck at it. And it's also maybe having a 6 fix. It's kind of fun to predict like, oh, this person said this, she's going to fucking lose her shit. Or this, if she does it this way, then she can kind of delicately get through that obstacle or whatever else. Like watching other social structures is also pretty fun for me.
Yeah. I get really high watching shows like The Office, where you know, it's actually a very self-pres social show, but like the tone of it is all about like, you know, or even Seinfeld, again, very self-pres social show, but it's those kind of shows where they're doing social play area, but they're really playing. So yeah, it's social time. I'm just kind of watching and I'm just like, oh my God, it's so awkward. I can't even breathe. And it's like so exciting, you know?
Yeah. I mean, exactly that. I mean, I've also mentioned that like, even watching social media, not just like Instagram and Facebook and, you know, whatever, Twitter, whatever else, but even just like television shows and movies and stuff like that. Like that gave me a lot of the framework. That taught me a lot about how to navigate the social realm. You know, I would see like what was portrayed in like romantic relationships and in friendships, you know, like Mean Girls was like not that necessarily taught me anything, but there is something very true about like the dynamic that is broadcasted in that movie, that everything is just like very cliquey. And it's like the social realm can be such a fucking disaster jungle. So seeing I don't know, getting to see that dynamic from an outside place by watching shows like this can be really informative. Can really like show a lot of the mess. Because like the social realm is super fucking messy sometimes.
Yeah. I think the difference between us in that respect, because I think I know exactly what you're saying, except the difference is I don't absorb anything that I deem to be like basic and accept it as truth, and everything is basic to me. So like I don't, I'll watch all this stuff and be like, no, disgusting. And then I can't actually, I'm still learning from it though. Like I think I'm still doing what you're doing, except I'm not taking it in as like, I don't know how to put this. I'm just not, I'm not a receptive person. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not accepting, let's say. I can be receptive, but not accepting.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's basically what I was getting to, or what I was like coming to, that it sounds like you like see it as information, but you just like swat it away.
Yeah. Or I'll do, you know, I think a lot of, I think social sexual specifically do, but like, you know, we kind of idealize social interactions that we do like on TV. So like, I've always wanted, you know what I mean? I can watch a show like a sitcom. I watched Will and Grace when I was a kid, and it was like the only gay show on TV. And also it was really funny. It's like very, very 90s, but it was hilarious. And I just remember like, God, I just want to be them. I just want to live. I want some crazy larger than life 7 to like barge into my bedroom and start on some, like, you know what I mean? Like I want this life. I want Kramer to dive into my room. Like I've said this to other social sexual people. Like I want that life where everybody's just sort of a little bit too close to each other, and they're always entertained by each other, and they just kind of like live. But then I'm also like disappointed and disgusted by the fact that like no people could ever actually be that interesting to me. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's
but
very
I want
frustration type.
You know?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like as an attachment type, a lot of how I understand that social and, you know, just how people go through the world is dictated by what I see. Like, I think like as an attachment type, what I see must be the truth. Like if it comes from, it's really super easy for me to discount what comes from me, because I just don't like, you know, like I have information that comes from me, but it can very easily get overridden by the external, because I just assume that everybody else has it down and that I'm just learning.
Like, I have the opposite. Like if you think of the complete opposite, that's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that covers attachment versus hexad in the social realm.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. And we're done. No, I mean, it's interesting because like what you're saying is we're still, but it's good to parse this out, because we're still both doing like, I'm still tracking the same thing you're tracking. I'm just pushing up against it with all of my shit, because hexad, you know what I mean? They're like spiky, sharp people that kind of just walk through and stab things. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm here, I'm standing, you know, whereas attachment is like, okay, like I have a bag, I can take some of this stuff and put it in my bag and I'll look at it later. And that kind of, it's just like, there's like a wider container. There's more space for attachment types, but are we tracking the same things? Yes. It's just not reacting to it in the same way.
Yeah, that is interesting. Something that this is something John and I have talked about, but that like me as an attachment type, I assume the way of the world is fixed and I have to adapt to it.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like since we're both social types, it sounds like you know how social interactions are supposed to go, and like you will accept nothing less. Whereas I'm like, no, it's already there. It's how it is. I have to make my way through it.
Yeah. And there's so for sure, I think this is important, because social, even as a hexad type, there's absolutely an element of adaptation in social. So I think I'm less hexad than say John, because I have that social dominant in a sense, right? I do have to adapt. Like I was saying, I'm aware that, like if I used the example earlier about like going to a party or something where my friend was like, I'll just go and I'll sit there, and I'm like, no, I know I'm supposed to adapt. I know I have to in order to like, again, get that ball going back and forth, but I refuse to adapt with those people. And I refuse to attach. I refuse to just show up and be like, we're all people, so I guess we like each other. Like we're already brothers and sisters. It's like, no, I hate you all. I don't know you. I don't care. And it stresses me out that I would have to try to start throwing a ball back and forth with you, because I don't want to. But I do have the energy. I have that ball in my pocket all the time. And so I'm frustrated. I'm like trying to find that person or whatever in any moment who's going to start playing catch with me. But it's not those people over there, and it's not those people over there. And I guess I'll just stay home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting. That's also that that's so good. That's interesting too, that we're also speaking to two different flavors of being withdrawn. They're just like, everything sucks, I'm not even going to participate. Whereas mine is more like, if I'm out there, then I'm going to be obligated to maintain these connections that are in front of me, or maintain these social interactions that are in front of me, which is why, like, when the pandemic happened and when lockdown happened, there was this like very quick, easy wave of relief of like, thank God, now I don't have to do any of that shit. Like, I have my own brand of like particularity when it comes to the friendships that I choose and the connections that I like want to keep, because I know that I can get easily swept into like a place of needing to maintain it. So I feel like I'm pretty particular about choosing friendships and connections that are going to be low maintenance.
Right.
Does that make sense? Because if I end up connected to a high maintenance person, I'm going to be drained.
Yeah.
Because the social interaction is important to me. I'm there. I have no choice. I'm going to like serve it, basically.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's just the kind of energy of like attachment, again, we both want that social thing, but you're sort of like, almost like you said, like you have no choice but to attach, but to go out and adapt. And with attachment, and it's not necessarily this openly positive thing, but there's an assumption that everybody around you is already your brother and your sister. And so if you're a misanthropic attachment type, which happens all the time, it's almost like you have to put up this like, no, all the time. It's like a forced no, that like, I'm not going to merge, and I'm not going to, because your tendency is to. Whereas me, it is really not difficult for me to just, like, my initial reaction is no. I'm just not doing that. And I don't have trouble. I have trouble saying yes. I have trouble being like, oh, maybe I like this person, and maybe that they're interesting, and maybe, you know what I mean, that wasn't boring and shallow. Maybe it was okay. So it's really just it's the same thing though. The point is that space is sacred, and we both know there is some obligation for us to be in that space a certain way and respond to it a certain way. Whereas like social blinds, I don't think that they feel that as much. So we're going to be particular in some way, about how much we engage in it. And for you, it was almost like, again, there's a 9 passivity, so it's like, oh, thank God, the lockdown, the world just made it so that I don't have to I don't have to draw lines right now in the sand.
Yes.
I could just, it's the lines drawn for me. You know what I mean? For me, it was almost like, I actually need people to force me over lines. You know what I mean? Like, just, oh my God, just take one step, just try, just go, you know what I mean? Go to that club, go to this event, you know what I mean? And again, I'm frustration. I'll always be disappointed, but like here and there, it's like, I'm still a human being, and something will happen that makes me happy. And it's nice that I stepped over that line. So yeah, the lockdown for me was almost like counter to what I needed in a sense.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Yes, again, just to underline the withdrawn thing, it sounds like you withdraw because nothing out there is good enough. And I withdraw almost as like a protective measure, because like, I need to hide from things because I know that I'll get swept up, and like, I don't want to get swept up into the wrong thing.
Yeah, you're porous. So you need to make sure that when you go out that, you're not just sort of absorbing things that you don't want to absorb. Right. Yep. Yeah. Well, damn. I hope that they find this interesting, because I feel like, again, this whole kind of thing that we did was an interesting social situation, and we got to actually talk about it in itself. And I mean, I think there's some good stuff here. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we didn't cover, so I think we're good too. We did the spectrum. Yeah. All right. Well, that was cool. Yeah. We'll see. Well, it was nice to like meet you and talk to you. I know, likewise. Yeah, I know that we have like chatted here and there, like in like little spurts of time, but it's cool. This was fun. Okay, well, I'm gonna go. I'm starving. It was nice talking to you, and that's it. Yeah. I don't know. Same. Yeah, it was good talking to you too. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day. You too. Bye. Bye.